Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and tenno of all ages. As I'm sure you've all heard by now, the Microsoft Activision Blizzard King deal has been finalized, and Microsoft officially owns Activision Blizzard. Now, the best part of all this, before we get into the meat of the situation, is that the devil of the company, which is Bobby Kotick, has been confirmed to be leaving by the end of the year, which is absolutely huge. Now, if you don't know who Bobby Kotick is, he's basically the CEO of the company, and he had long established the culture of constant sexual harassment, which included unwanted comments towards female employees, unwanted physical touching, and one of the most egregious parts of all this is that in 2006, he reportedly left his assistant a voicemail threatening to have her killed. Now, this was settled out of court, so obviously this chick got paid not to go public with all this shit. Now, reports say that Bobby Kotick will remain into the end of the year, and that's perfectly fine with me as long as we get this dude out of here because, I mean, if Bobby's here, who's running hell? The only thing that truly pisses me off about Kotick leaving is that Kotick will receive a $375 million severance as a form of compensation upon leaving. Like, the world just isn't a fair place. It kind of makes me think, like, maybe I should start racking up the negative karma, screwing over all my employees, and believing in nothing but money because maybe then I'll become more successful. But who the fuck knows, Anyway, we are not necessarily here to talk about Bobby. We are here to talk about the W that Microsoft is currently holding. Now, what we can say about Microsoft is, I know some people don't like Microsoft, and I know some people don't care for Game Pass. Hell, I know some people look at Microsoft as the big scary corporation that's grabbing up all the gaming companies, so let's all panic. When in actuality, Sony's been doing the same thing for way longer than Microsoft. Like, these are billion-dollar corporations. Sony's not playing fair either. Sony's gobbling up everything. Sony's not just gobbling up video game companies. Look at Sony. They gobbled up Spider-Man when fucking Marvel was at their weakest. And that was probably one of the biggest W's that Sony has ever held. And they're currently still holding that W. Sony's gobbled up a fuck ton of rappers. You know how many rappers Sony owns? So it's not like Sony's the innocent guy in all this. Sony's just as fucking money driven as the rest of these corporations. In fact, Sony is so big in the gaming industry that even with this acquisition, it only makes Microsoft like the third or fourth biggest game publisher in the gaming industry, right behind Sony. So basically what I'm saying is, even with Microsoft's biggest W, Microsoft is so far behind Sony, they can't even eat Sony's dust because the dust has settled. Even when you look at Nintendo, I know Nintendo tries to claim, oh, we don't compete in the console wars. Well, that's some bullshit because they have a console, so intrinsically they compete in the console wars. And when you look at the Nintendo Switch is the most underpowered piece of shit ass console. And trust me, I know because I own one, right? You can't even get third party and indie games to run properly on that bitch. Like, if you're playing some shit on the Nintendo Switch that is available on other platforms, you're objectively playing it in the worst possible way it could be played. And somehow, Nintendo is still cleaning Microsoft's clock. Now, why is Nintendo cleaning Microsoft's clock? Well, that's because Nintendo has something that Microsoft doesn't have. Hell, you can argue that Nintendo has something that Sony doesn't have, and that is the IPs. Nintendo has IPs that they have held on damn near since the inception of Nintendo. Everybody grew up playing Mario. Everybody grew up playing Pokemon. Everybody grew up playing Zelda, maybe less so than Mario and Pokemon, but still, Zelda is still a staple. And because everybody grew up playing Mario and Pokemon. Just those two franchises alone have built Nintendo a fucking empire. And because Nintendo has taken care of these franchises and they have expanded on these franchises in more ways than one, the generation that grew up playing these video games get to introduce these franchises to a whole new generations of kids, you know? And I think that's kind of cool that, you know, you grew up playing Mario and Pokemon, now you get to introduce it to your kid. Then on top of that, because Nintendo has taken care of these franchises and expanded on them in such a way, you're starting to see Nintendo come out with all kinds of movies like Detective Pikachu. They're coming out with the Mario movie, and these movies are breaking fucking records and they're earning Nintendo a fuck ton of money. Because of IPs like Mario, Zelda, Pokemon, Nintendo has cemented their place in the gaming industry, and they can't even be touched by fucking Sony. And you could make the argument that Sony does have mascots, but Sony's mascots don't have the same pedigree as Nintendo's mascots. Like when Nintendo comes out this bitch with motherfucking Mario. When Sony comes out this bitch, who the fuck is Sony gonna bring out? Sony's gonna bring out Aloy? Or are they gonna bring out Nathan Drake? And you know, that's fine. And you know what's funny? Crash Bandicoot used to be one of Sony's biggest mascots, but ironically, Sony can't even bring out Crash Bandicoot anymore because Microsoft owns the Crash Bandicoot IP. If I was Microsoft, I would announce the next Crash Bandicoot immediately, and I would announce it as an exclusive for the Xbox. Hell, that's what Microsoft needs to do. Microsoft, they need to stop trying to be Mr. Nice Guy, and it's time to start hitting Sony below the belt. It's time to start fucking kicking Sony in the junk, because Sony's been fucking shitting on you guys for how long? And they've been laughing at you guys too. So where does Microsoft go from here? Well, Microsoft now owns fucking Activision Blizzard. So it's just a matter of time before we see Call of Duty on Game Pass. And Call of Duty will always be a big franchise. Call of Duty will forever be big. So Call of Duty is huge, and not to mention that comes with Warzone. So hopefully the quality of Call of Duty in Warzone can improve now that it's not all about profit margin. But I doubt we're gonna see an improvement immediately. Microsoft now owns World of Warcraft, which is huge. If I was Microsoft, I would fucking put WoW on Game Pass. And I know some of the fanboys are gonna be like, oh, that will never work. You will never be able to play WoW on a controller. While other fucking WoW players will comment on those same comments and they'll say, LOL, I've been playing WoW on a controller for years. Joke's on you. Microsoft now owns the Warcraft franchise, and fucking Warcraft Reforged was more akin to Warcraft Refurbished. So hopefully the community gets on Microsoft like, hey man, fucking fix this shit. Microsoft now owns the Diablo franchise. So hopefully they can force Blizzard to pull Diablo out the mud, and hopefully the next Diablo won't be some live service bullshit. Microsoft now owns Overwatch. So hopefully Blizzard can stop nickel and diming all the player for the best skins in the game. And hopefully they can make some kind of deal with Microsoft to where, you know, if you have Game Pass, you automatically get the Battle Pass or some shit, you know. They gotta sweeten the pot a little bit for the Game Pass players, because the fucking Overwatch has been in such a poor state lately. And you can argue that it's driven that way because they have to make a profit off the video game. But I don't see Microsoft caring as much about making a profit as they do about the optics of the video game. So I suspect when Microsoft officially owns Activision Blizzard and Bobby Kotick is gone, I suspect once you see the next Overwatch uproar, Microsoft will respond because they don't want the negative PR. Microsoft also now owns the Candy Crush developer, which is huge for their mobile platform. Now, listen, what does this mean for gamers? Well, it probably doesn't mean a whole lot in the short term, but in the long term, we'll probably see a lot of these IPs eventually come to Game Pass. Now, as far as the business practices goes for all the developers that were working under the Activision umbrella on live service titles, I doubt we're going to see them change their predatory game design and their predatory monetization overnight. I think it's going to be a huge uproar before they actually change it and realize, okay, we need to prioritize making the community happy over nickel and diming the community. So I don't see there being a change overnight. I see there eventually being a huge uproar before we get a change. After all, look what happened to Halo, right? The only reason Halo is in the state it is because Microsoft, yeah, they own these companies, but Microsoft was trying to give these companies autonomy. And as a result of that, these companies end up fucking up these games like Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite was not supposed to turn out like that. That's one of Microsoft's biggest franchise. You know another game under the Microsoft umbrella that wasn't supposed to turn out the way it did? Redfall. When Arcane were developing Redfall, I believe ZeniMax was forcing them to make some live service garbage, and Arcane knew the game was in a poor state and they knew the game was going to be bad. But once the company was sold to Microsoft, Arcane was hoping that Microsoft would step in and they would either axe the project or revamp the project altogether. But Microsoft never did. Microsoft was just kind of like, okay, keep doing what you're doing, maintain your current posture, and yeah, we'll be in the office. And look how that game turned out. So the thing is, Microsoft does own these IPs, but now the onus is on Microsoft to get off their ass and actually do a little bit of micromanaging. And I know some of these companies will be like, oh yeah, we need to prioritize the health of the team. Yeah, that's all true. But at the same time, you can't use that as an excuse for your constant failures like 343 Industries seem to do. Like 343 Industries is the most pathetic company to be developing a Halo video game, and Microsoft has still yet to step in and be like, you know what, we're gonna take you guys off Halo. You know, we're not gonna fire you, any of you guys, but we're gonna let you guys do something different, just not Halo. So Microsoft really needs to get off their ass and do some goddamn management. Anyway, guys, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. This has been Remo Yes Man, signing out. Peace.